The sun was just beginning to rise over Chestnut Hill when her car was found, parked exactly where she left it the night before. Her purse sat untouched, her phone was silent, and her shift at the nursing home had come and gone. But 23-year-old Kada Scott was gone. No signs of struggle, no goodbye message, no answers. Just a mother's frantic calls going to voicemail, and a city starting to whisper the word no one wanted to say: murder. What began as a missing person case would soon unravel into something darker. A trail of disturbing behavior, a violent past, and one name surfacing again and again: Keon King. He was the last one to speak to her, the last one she texted, and according to prosecutors, the one man with a history that mirrors a pattern too dangerous to ignore. This isn't just the story of a disappearance. It's the story of all the warning signs we missed, and the young life that may have paid the price. This is the case of Kada Scott, and the man who may have been hunting long before anyone noticed. In every murder investigation, one question guides everything: who had the motive, the means, and the opportunity? It's the question detectives ask when the trail runs cold. It's what turns random evidence into a case, and a suspect into a killer. In today's story, we're breaking down a case that seemed picture-perfect on the outside. But when the truth came out, it was fueled by obsession, jealousy, and premeditated violence. This is not just a story about murder. It's about control, about rage, about what happens when fame and ego collide, and someone doesn't walk away. Let's investigate. Kada Scott was a 23-year-old woman living in Philadelphia. She had recently started a job at an assisted living facility in the Chestnut Hill area of the city. She had also been involved in pageants and was described as ambitious, aiming to build a future for herself beyond her current job. But something happened in the days leading up to her disappearance. She reported being harassed by phone calls from unknown individuals. Her family became worried. The sense that this wasn't just an ordinary missing person case began to take hold. Kada Scott was born around 2001 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and grew up in the East Mount Airy/Germantown neighborhood. She was the eldest child of her father, Kevin Scott, and her mother, Kim Matthews. From childhood, Kada exhibited creativity and drive. Her father described her as the creative type who loved fashion and even designed her own clothing brand in the past. At home, she carried the hopes of family, a young woman with ambitions beyond her neighborhood. As she progressed through high school and into college, Kada focused her sights on communication, service, and possibility. She enrolled at Penn State University and graduated in 2023 with a degree in communications. During her college years, she also began to explore new arenas: beauty pageants and service-oriented work. According to her father, in the summer preceding her disappearance, she broke into pageants for the first time, participating in the Miss USA circuit via the Miss Pennsylvania USA competition. Friends and family recall a young woman who was balancing ambition and everyday reality. Creative, engaged, caring. She once told loved ones she was planning to start her own healthcare business venture. After college, Kada took a job working overnight at a senior living facility, the Terrace at Chestnut Hill, in Philadelphia's Chestnut Hill neighborhood. Her shift was scheduled from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., a demanding rhythm for anyone starting out. This job wasn't just work. For Kada, it represented a step toward her service-oriented dreams, helping others, earning her independence, building the next chapter of her life. Yet the hour also exposed her to risk, working overnight, being out when few others are around, entering and exiting an environment when most of the city was asleep. At home, the Scott/Matthews family was close-knit and loving. Her father spoke publicly of how her disappearance left the family bewildered. "It's my oldest daughter. I love her," he said. Her mother, Kim, expressed her fear that, having received phone harassment and then vanishing in the night, that Kada was not safe. Kada's parents saw her stepping out into the world, proud yet protective. The community, too, viewed her as a young woman of promise, a college grad, a pageant participant, an elder care worker who still held dreams of entrepreneurship. On the night of Saturday, October 4th, 2025, Kada left home around 9:45 p.m. to drive to her job at the Terrace at Chestnut Hill. She parked her car and began her shift, But in an unusual turn, she left the workplace earlier than scheduled, reportedly around 10:30 p.m. Her car remained in the parking lot, but the phone that should have been with her suddenly went silent. No texts, no social media activity, no calls. For a woman described as always having her phone and responding quickly, this silence deepened the alarm. Colleagues later confirmed she did not finish her shift. Investigators say she was seen arriving, and then she left in a way that was inconsistent with her normal pattern. The fact that she had reported harassment raised the alarm. Investigators elevated the case using K-9 units, search parties, and even helicopters across wooded and arboretum areas. In the days prior, it had emerged that Kada had received harassing and threatening phone calls from unknown individuals. Investigators believe these calls might be linked to her disappearance. When she failed to return home at 6 a.m. on October 5th and did not answer her phone, Kada's mother reported her missing. The search began in earnest. Police, K-9 units, drones, helicopters. The neighborhood canvassed for what should have been the simplest of questions. Where is she? Her family held on to hope. Flyers, the GoFundMe, appeals to the public. Every small lead was pursued, yet the phone remained silent. As the investigation intensified, law enforcement zeroed in on a 21-year-old man, Keon King. He was reportedly the last person known to be in contact with Kada before her disappearance. King was already implicated earlier in the year in a separate kidnapping and alleged assault case, one where the charges were dropped because the victim failed to appear in court. Investigators say there is video evidence from that earlier incident of King stalking a woman, peering through windows, breaking and entering, clearly showing a pattern of predatory behavior. In Kada's case, a vehicle believed connected to King, a gold 1999 Toyota Camry, and other items linked to Kada were found at locations under investigation. On October 19, 2025, investigators announced that human remains had been recovered from a shallow grave behind an abandoned middle school in East Germantown, believed to be those of Kada Scott. Though formal identification by the medical examiner is still pending, the recovery marked a chilling turn in the case, from missing person to presumed homicide. Meanwhile, King is in custody, held on $2.5 million bail, charged with kidnapping, stalking, reckless endangerment, and related offenses. Prosecutors describe the case as one of pattern, meaning King is suspected of similar predatory acts beyond this one case. Even with these developments, many questions remain. What was the nature of the relationship between Kada and King? How long had they known each other? Who made the harassing phone calls to Kada before she went missing? Were they connected to the suspect? Investigators are still looking into the calls. Why did Kada leave work so abruptly? Was she forced to get into the vehicle? Or did she leave voluntarily and then something happened? If the remains are formally confirmed as hers, can investigators definitively determine a cause of death, locate others involved, and find full justice for her family? The police had one early clue. The last person to contact Kada that night was a man named Keon King. But to understand what may have happened to Kada, you have to go back, months earlier, to another woman, another night, and another terrifying encounter. The first time Keon King's name entered police records in a serious way was January 13th, 2025. It was cold, bitter outside. But what happened that night had nothing to do with the weather. According to police reports and video footage later uncovered, King approached his ex-girlfriend's house in North Philadelphia. Surveillance captured him creeping through her yard, peering through her window. She shouted at him to leave. He didn't. Later that same night, she was dragged into a car, King's car. In the back seat sat a 2-year-old child, their child. As the vehicle sped away, King allegedly bit her face, choked her, and threatened her friend. Then as suddenly as it began, she was released. Police were called. Charges were filed. Kidnapping, strangulation, assault. The kind of charges that should keep someone off the streets. But the case never went to trial. The victim never showed up in court. Not once. Not twice. She disappeared from the process, just like so many others afraid to speak. By May, the charges were withdrawn. Keon King walked free. The courts may have let him walk, but the behavior didn't stop. Throughout early 2025, King racked up a string of run-ins with law enforcement, driving without a license, fleeing police on foot, ignoring stop orders and speeding away. Another woman filed a protection from abuse order against him, valid until 2027. Prosecutors and police would later describe a pattern forming, not just bad luck or small-time charges, but something more serious, a trajectory. In forensic psychology, this is what's called escalation behavior, a step-by-step increase in risk and control, from stalking to force, from intimidation to disappearance. But at the time, he was still free. Experts say the signs were all there. A man who stalks a woman, peeks through her window, forces his way into her home, and drags her into a car with a toddler in the back seat. This isn't a misunderstanding. It's a cycle. A person who drives away from police, violates protective orders, and escalates from intrusion to violence. That's not a fluke, it's a pattern. According to forensic psychology, Keon King exhibited key markers of a high-risk offender: target fixation, repeatedly following or contacting women he knew; control and domination, physically overpowering victims, choking, biting, behaviors that communicate ownership; impulsivity with planning. While his actions seem impulsive, the timing, the stalking, the patterns all suggest premeditation. Disregard for consequence, fleeing police, violating orders, committing crimes with a child in the car. This is someone who either believes he's untouchable or doesn't care. Perhaps worst of all, the earlier case, the one that could have kept him behind bars, was dropped. Not because the allegations weren't serious, but because the system couldn't protect the witness long enough for her to testify. This case raises questions we've heard too many times before. What if the January victim had been able to testify safely? What if the prior charges had held? What if someone had seen this pattern earlier? In true crime, the saddest stories are often the ones we could have stopped, the ones with warning signs we ignored, the ones where a victim screams, "Go away," and no one listens until it's too late. In the shadows of Philadelphia's early mornings, a woman disappeared. And in the weeks that followed, the case revealed more than a missing person. It revealed the quiet failure of a system and the terrifying truth that predators don't always hide. Sometimes they knock on your window. Sometimes they know your number. Sometimes the signs were there all along. This case underscores broader themes: the vulnerability of young women working late-night shifts, the importance of taking stalking and harassment reports seriously, and the fact that seemingly isolated reports may portend something far more sinister. Kada Scott's story remains heartbreaking. From promising young woman to a disappearance that's now likely a homicide investigation. While authorities move ahead with prosecutions, her family continues to seek answers and closure. If someone is watching you, following you, calling when you've asked them not to, that's not love. That's not a mistake. That's a warning. You don't need proof to be believed. You don't need bruises to deserve protection. Stalking often starts small, but too many stories end the same, with silence, with fear, and with someone saying, "I thought I was overreacting." You are not overreacting. You are allowed to speak up. You are allowed to get help. If you feel unsafe, trust that feeling. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or visit www.thehotline.org. If you're in immediate danger, call 911. Your life is worth protecting, and you are not alone. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you don't miss updates on this case and others like it. Until next time, stay safe, listen to your instincts, and look out for one another.